President Biden will attend a virtual emergency meeting with G7 leaders to discuss the situation in Ukraine. Yesterday, Russian forces launched multiple airstrikes across Ukraine, hitting heavily populated areas and several infrastructure targets. President Biden condemned the attacks, saying they, quote, demonstrate the utter brutality of Russian President Vladimir Putin. Hugo Bachega is one of our partners at the BBC, and he has this report.
Ukrainians have gone back to underground shelters this morning, just like us here in Kyiv, as the air raid sirens went off across the country at around 8 o'clock in the morning local time. And the country's emergency services then sent an alert to everybody's phones, telling people to stay in shelters and to not ignore air raid alerts. Obviously, this happens a day after Russia carried out the worst air attacks since the early days of the war. Cities across the country were hit, including here in Kyiv. The city center was attacked for the first time in this war. A location very close to our hotel here was hit yesterday morning. We had an update from the authorities saying that at least 19 people have been killed, more than 100 injured as a result of the attacks yesterday. In the south of the country, in the city of Zaporizhia, the authorities say that the city was again attacked by Russian forces overnight. 12 missiles hit public facilities, including a school, and one person was killed. Zaporizhia is a major city that is relatively close to the front lines in the south of the country and has been frequently attacked by Russian forces. And later today, President Zelensky is going to address a virtual meeting of the G7 leaders. He's expected to urge countries to send more weapons to Ukraine. He's also expected to say that air defense systems are the #1 priority of this country. Last night, he went to one of the places attacked here in Kyiv, where he recorded his traditional evening address. He said Ukraine forces would be strengthened, and he also said that Ukraine would not be intimidated by these attacks. Anne-Marie?
Hugo Bachega, thank you very much. So here to discuss all of this is Michael Bociurkiw. He is a global affairs analyst who's been in Ukraine since the war started. He's also a non-resident senior fellow at the Atlantic Council's Eurasia Center and the former spokesman for the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe. So glad to see and hear you again and see that you are safe, because I am looking at some of the most recent news coverage, and it says here Ukrainian forces destroy 3 enemy missiles over the Odessa region. I believe that's the region you are in. So I should ask you, how are you doing and how do you feel? I mean, this is a little unnerving, these missiles targeting civilian locations.
Absolutely. Good to be with you again, Anne-Marie. You know, I got to be honest with you. It's depressing, actually, because only 2 days ago here in Odessa, the streets were thriving. A lot of people going to and fro, restaurants reopening, renovations taking place. And you know, this is coming after a long period of war, and even before that, the COVID pandemic, when a lot of restaurants and hospitality facilities had to close down. So a lot of business owners I talk to are taking a risk. They're betting that peace is going to come soon, that tourists will come back, but it's hard to see that right now. Having said that, you know, we always have to look for light in the midst of darkness. Just a block away from where I'm staying, there's the marriage office. I counted 2 weddings this morning, and young people joyful and starting a new life. And I think, Anne-Marie, that really symbolizes the spirit of irrepressible defiance that we see around the country. People telling me, Mr. Putin can fire all the missiles he can, but it's not going to take away our will to live our way to defeat him. We need to push them out as far as we can.
Yes, the strength of hope. What is your assessment of what we're seeing right now? We know that this is in retaliation to the bombing of the bridge in Crimea. But does this seem like it's strategically smart? This is certainly not going to change anything that's happening on the front lines.
No, it won't. You're right. And, you know, for example, I was listening a long time to Ukrainian radio this morning, and they were talking about the city of Zaporizhia, which Hugo reported on. And, you know, they're really bombing it heavily. And this is a city they presumably plan to take over. So why bomb it into such submission? And we also must remember that that is the site of that Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, the largest in Europe. So that sends chills down your back as well. But I think at the end of the day, this is a sign of weakness. Mr. Putin reacting to a couple of things. Humiliating battlefield losses. They can't advance very far on the battlefield because of the strength of Ukrainian forces, helped by Western weaponry. But also, I think he's responding, it's a survival tactic for him, pressure from home, from war hawks that really want to push this war forward. I think we're probably going to see more barrage waves of missiles, and also those kamikaze Iranian-made drones that tend to come here to Odessa. So it's a bit of a scary, anxious period right now.
Let me ask you about some news that's happening now. We've learned that President Putin has appointed a new general to oversee this war, yet another one. He's trading them out pretty rapidly. This one comes with the nickname of General Armageddon. He oversaw the troops in Syria. What does this indicate to you about how things are going, that this is the person that he's tapped right now?
I think it pretty much confirms what I just said, is that they will switch tactics to more of these long-range missiles and drones. It's a cowardly act. It's we're talking about war crimes, especially what happened yesterday in Kyiv and other cities. So how should the West react? I think really two things. One is the supply of course, more heavy advanced weaponry. But the other thing they need to do, especially the United States, is give the Ukrainians more range on those HIMARS missiles, because at the moment they're limited to a few dozen kilometers. And then the other thing, of course, is to provide more air defense systems. The problem there, Anne-Marie, is my understanding is there just aren't enough of those systems in the world to defend a country as large as Ukraine. So I think they'll have to be very strategic, place it in Kyiv and other places of administration, of governments, and also civilian infrastructure. But the approach today, we saw in Lviv, by the way, more missiles hitting Lviv, 3 explosions and 2 energy-making facilities, 30% of the city without power. I think that's the route they're going to take, try and bomb as much of the infrastructure as possible.
Well, I got to tell you, I was one of those people that thought, oh, man, there's so much money being spent on military aid. Is it just going down a black hole? But what we have seen in recent weeks is that it absolutely is not. That given the proper military aid to do what you said, give them more range, they have been able to push back the Russian army with remarkable speed. Is that what you expect the president of Ukraine to be asking when he speaks to the G7 leaders today?
Right, and it's an important question to address properly. I was recently in London, and people there were asking me, we're fearing about, shivering in the dark because so much money is going to this war effort. But I said, this war effort cannot stop. And, it has to be said, yesterday, Anne-Marie, 3 of those Russian cruise missiles violated Moldova airspace where civilian airplanes are flying. And, that, of course, caused a lot of anxiety there. The Russian ambassador was summoned. But what if those missiles would have gone through some of the bordering NATO territories? So the West has to be firm. It has to be resolute, because otherwise, that's what Mr. Putin exploits, weakness and disunity. So I can't overstate it enough how strong the reaction has to be when the G7 leaders meet, and especially, again, air defense systems and more heavy weaponry right away.
So we're going to dig more into that later on when we talk with our White House correspondent, Michael Bociurkiw. It is always a pleasure to speak to you. Stay safe, my friend.
My pleasure. Thank you.